Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I was on vacation last week in Jamaica, and on my second day there, I fell. My ankle buckled, turned, and twisted. I tore ligaments in my ankle, and I fell all my weight on my right knee. So, excuse me if I have to sit part of this presentation. I can only stand for so long, and then it just hurts. Okay.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk about better selections of trees and shrubs for the landscape. Now, you guys in this part of the state, you actually can grow more plants than I can in Madison. It's slightly warmer here, hardiness zone. And a couple of the plants I mentioned today, you can't grow very well in Madison. Oh, excellent, thank you. Well, today I'm going to talk about trees and shrubs. We'll take a break. What time do you want to take a break, Sharon?
About 7.
7 o'clock? Okay, sounds great. And a little quick introduction. I'm from UW-Madison. As Sharon mentioned, I'm the woody ornamental specialist. I deal a lot with the arborists in Wisconsin. And my specialty is trees and shrubs. That's my area of expertise. I've been at UW now for almost 19 years. Can you believe that, Sharon?
Oh my God.
You remember when I came?
Yeah.
Wow, I know. I'm kind of shocked. It's been
It
that
only
long.
seems like a decade or two. We need that. I don't know what you do.
Tell them what I do. Well, go crazy. I don't know why this key thing is here. Gotta find your keyboard. There. All right, in the landscape, there's approximately, according to Dr. J.C. Ralston, I did my graduate work at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm originally from Michigan. I did my undergrad at Michigan State. And J.C. Ralston was a professor that I worked for my master's degree at NC State. And he was a phenomenal plantsman. He was a good man, very knowledgeable. He was really good friends with Michael Durr, and both of them together are incredible plantsmen. And J.C. Ralston came up with his own kind of law that in any given area, 40 plants make up 90% of the market. Yeah. Can we name those plants? Blue spruce, which you shouldn't plant, barberry, burning bush, patilla, the Stella d'Oro dills. Those things are horrible. See what else? You know, junipers, Rebecca. Yeah, I mean, you get the drift. It's kind of boring when you see the same old plants over and over again. And can you hear me in the back? No. Okay. All right. I teach in a classroom about this size, and I don't know, I think it's because it's slanted classroom, they can hear me.
Yeah.
Younger ears.
Younger ears. That's it. Yeah, that's a good one. So we try to branch out, pun intended, and have new plants in the landscape. I know in my yard, I don't think anything anybody in the entire neighborhood has. But I get the obscure stuff. I like the obscure. All right. Wow, those are really dark. Yeah. Is there a way of lightening it?
We'll see.
All my pictures are going to be dark. But
Probably horsepower to land.
This one says
the
manual. This one?
horsepower.
I think so.
Yeah, there it is, brightness.
Brightness.
Yep. Yeah, brighten it up.
If I will move. It moved
moving.
once, didn't it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, see, that made it different. You can actually see the stars. Let there be light. Let there be
Big
light.
difference. You guys were gonna think I'm just a horrible photographer.
I think this thing goes away by itself in a second.
Okay.
Oh, maybe. Let's see. There we go.
There it goes. Thanks, Sharon, I appreciate it. All right, so there's a lot of cool plants we can use in the landscape. And we like to avoid monocultures. Monocultures are not good because we've led to severe diseases. Chestnut blight, American chestnut used to be the primary tree in American forests, and it had been wiped out in the early 30s and 40s and 50s by chestnut blight. And then Dutch elm disease came to town, and everybody had planted American elms because I grew up in Detroit area, and I remember going down our streets. This is a horticulture moment here. I remember going down our street and seeing these beautiful American elm canopies. Do you remember that? And it was like a tunnel. Now at that age, I was 3 years old, and I fell in love with trees because of that. And then Dutch elm disease came along in Detroit, wiped them all out. They were all cut down. And I cried as a little kid. And I said, what's wrong? Where did all the trees go? And then I was told they died from a disease. And that was my start, my little bud, in my interest for horticulture. So you can teach children to love plants. All right. We planted all these ash trees instead, and now what do we have? Emerald ash borer. Now, I see the next plant that is going to become and come down with a bad disease or insect are Freeman maples. We have too many of them. We have too many maples, Norway maples, and so on in the landscape. And we keep planting them and planting them and planting them, just like we did with ash, just like we did with elm. And I think in the future we're going to see something really bad come along, which is sad. Other diseases that we've seen, oak wilt, I love oaks. Dogwood anthracnose, so now that is not a real problem here in this part of the country, but you just step into lower Ohio as well as into the southern states, and it's dogwood anthracnose has really done a job at wiping out a lot of flowering dogwoods, unfortunately. And the urban landscape is dominated by a relatively few species. Most of them are readily available in the trade. They're easy to grow, easy to propagate. They have good, tough drought resistance and so on. But we keep seeing these same plants over and over. And there is a low number of urban tolerant trees and shrubs available that can tolerate urban soils. And a lot of these are horribly invasive, like Norway maple, amber maples, very invasive, black locust, Japanese barberry, burning bush, buckthorn, as well as Tartarian honeysuckle. You see a lot of old farmsteads that still have that flowering honeysuckle, and the fruit is attractive to birds, and then the birds eat the fruit, they fly away, and they deposit the seeds. Same with buckthorn. Same with barberry. So many of these plants we really need to stop using in the landscape. Now, I'm going to talk about your backyards today, but I first want to talk about urban tolerance. And the fact that anything lives in this environment astonishes me. First of all, you got to withstand heat, drought, de-icing salts, soil compaction, high pH, poor drainage and aeration, low fertility, air pollution, and restricted rooting area. And then some wise guy comes along and decides, this is Atlanta, okay, this isn't up here. And they decide to plant these London plane trees right underneath the overhang of a building. How big do these trees get? A lot bigger than that overhang. So I see this and I'm like, it's the McFly moment. Did anybody ever see Back to the Future? Yeah. You know, that McFly. Yeah, this is definitely a McFly episode. If you look up and you see power lines or overhangs, don't plant a tree. We all know that here. Why do we still see this? Good question. about natives, I hear a number of, I don't want to say arguments because that's a bad word. I would say discussions of we should only plant natives because natives ensure genetic diversity. People have less allergen problems using some of our native plants, though I debate that highly. Not invasive native plants, better adapted to soil. You've heard all these. Pest resistant. Yeah, I can think of a lot of examples that are drought tolerant. However, there are numerous examples to this rule. Some of the most aggressive plants, like black locust. Now, you say black locust isn't native here, but it was pushed down by the Ice Age into central U.S. And over time, it's slowly moving back up. It's a native U.S. species. And there are other plants, native plants, that can be quite aggressive. Look at sumacs, right? Drought tolerant. Yeah, tell that to a sugar maple, okay? Tell that to some of the most ornamental flowering shrubs that we have in the landscape that are native. Many of them aren't drought tolerant, some are, and I'm going to talk about those today. And by the way, when I hear we should only plant natives only, I say, oops, urban soils are not native. They're not. They're horrible. They're usually compacted, poorly drained, high pH, very little, if any, organic matter. And some of our wonderful native plants you plant in that type of soil environment and they're not going to live very long. Okay? So I say right plant, right place. Now, diversity is very important, and I stress this now and every talk I do. We got to have diversity. We can't plant the same thing over and over. And we want to prevent the possibility of large-scale infestation by an insect or a devastating disease that comes along. And don't replace one species that died, like ash, with a lot of, say, maples, for example. We need diversity. And the Wisconsin DNR has come out with some new, I don't want to say rules, because it's not a rule, but it's highly suggested, in that plant no more of a city environment of one family, 20%. That means in your urban forest, including your backyards, no more than 20% of the plants collectively should be from one family. And I use the example birch family. Okay? Plant no more than 10% of a genus within a family. And a good example within the birch family is betula or birch, Australia, which is American hop hornbeam, Campinus, which is hornbeam, and Corylus, which is hazelnut. Those all are members of the birch family. So plant no more than 10% from a single genus. And then plant no more than 5% of a species within a genus. So if you just look at birch, for example, you've got cherry birch, you've got river birch, you've got paper birch, and you've got gray birch. So plant no more than 5% of a species. Now, they've done street tree inventories all over Wisconsin, and especially up north. Over 50% of the urban forests in some northern cities are ash. 50%. So what's going to happen, well, it already is happening, it's not if, it's when or now, when you lose 50% of your urban forest. It's devastating, absolutely devastating. And yes, you can treat these trees, however, unless your city has a lot of money, they're not going to have the money to treat all these trees. I live in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is a northeast suburb of Madison, and they wanted to charge, get this, all homeowners that have ash trees, street trees that is, $75 to treat their tree.
Every year, right?
No, well, that's, I had to go in front of the city council and kind of set them straight, but they we're going to cut down all these trees if people didn't pay for it. And my property taxes each year go up and up and up. And a lot of people have been priced out of homes in the Madison area because of that. But the problem is, if you treat these trees, are you gonna have to do it again? Yeah, every 2 years, 2 to 3 years, depending on the product. And I'm not against doing that. I think we should save our larger, more valuable trees. But why don't we start planting diversity? Okay, so today I'm going to talk about some, not only trees, but also shrubs that you can use. And we want to scatter the species, the cultivars, the clones within a city. And did you know the average life expectancy of a downtown tree is only 7 years? Now that's an average. There are some that obviously live longer, and some, excuse me, that live shorter. But that's pretty sad when you think about it. So we want trees and shrubs that are pest resistant, urban tolerant, aesthetically pleasing, of course, not invasive, cold hardy, available in trade, has enough space for that plant in the landscape, meets the design intent, maintains diversity, so not 50 yews planted in a row. We never see that, do we? And there's no such thing as a perfect tree, shrub, evergreen, okay? Everybody's like, well, there's litters. You know, I mentioned Kentucky coffee tree. Oh, but it litters the rachis, which is the stem that holds the leaflets, all over the ground. Yet these are the same people that mow their lawn twice a week. You know, once a year versus twice a week mowing. Not saying there's anything bad against grass. It's a nice place for my dogs to do their business. But grass has a special function in the landscape too. But I consider that higher maintenance than raking up some sticks once a year in the fall. So there is no such thing as a perfect tree or shrub. So let's first talk about large landscape trees. And the first one I'm going to talk about today is Miyabi maple. It's a maple. You've got to get away from planting too many maples. However, I do like this maple a lot. And one of the reasons why I like it so much is this particular cultivar. The cultivar is Morton, and it's from the Morton Arboretum. And at the Morton Arboretum, this tree, I know these pictures are still kind of dark, but they're better than they were. But I could not fit my hands around this. It was so big. And that is the mother plant at the Morton Arboretum. And it's a selection that can be grown with branches lower to the ground, or it's often limbed up and you have the tree on top, so it doesn't have to be lower branches. This is a really urban tolerant plant. It tolerates drought very well. It's got a thicker leaf, and the fall color, it's okay. It's kind of a yellowish fall color, but the leaves are unique in shape, almost star-shaped, and the plant has interesting bark when it gets older as well. I'm sorry?
Whirlybird?
Samaras? Yeah, all maples do. Boy, that picture is really dark.
It's totally the best we can do.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Don't think I'm a bad photographer, okay? Because these are light pictures on my computer. But anyways, we have sugar maple. And sugar maple is our state tree, right? Mm-hmm. I love sugar maple. I have one in my yard. And who doesn't love the bright orange or red to gold fall color? I mean, it's one of the best. And the one I particularly like is this one. This is Balestock, and it's from Bailey's Nursery. Anytime you see the word B-A-L, that stands for Bailey's Nursery. And Bailey's Nursery is in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they supply nurseries all over this part of the state. And the trademark name is Fall Fiesta. And Fall Fiesta sugar maple, I have this one in my yard. I really like it. It is, according to Bailey's, and I would agree, it has a thicker leaf, so it can tolerate drier soils better. Not drought, drier soils. And the fall color is just as good as the species. It's a very nice yellow to orange. Actually, it's more orange than yellow. And it's very beautiful. I think we should be planting more sugar maples. The problem is in the environments in the city, it's not conducive to sugar maples. So this would be a good backyard tree. Okay? And it provides wonderful shade as well. Norwegian sunset maple is a hybrid maple, and it's a hybrid between Norway maple and Shantung maple, or Acer truncatum. This is not considered invasive. It is a medium-sized tree. It also has very late fall color. Same with its cousin, Pacific sunset. So you got Norwegian sunset, Pacific sunset. There are new hybrids coming out of Schmidt's nursery. One's called Urban Sunset, and there's a couple other ones. But they're all hybrids between Norway and Shantung maple. And the fall color on Pacific sunset is late. It's almost November before it really starts coloring up. But the color is a combination of orange and red and some yellow. It's really quite nice. We have some of these on campus and they've done very well. So it's not small, it's not big, it's about a 45 foot tall tree. All right, our native hackberry. This is a great landscape plant. Hackberries, yes, they get the gall on the leaves, big deal. They are one of the best trees for drought tolerance. When we had the drought of 2012, you know, some of our native plants as well as exotics just bit the dust during that drought. Hackberry, and I looked at hackberries all over, and they did very well during the drought. They didn't grow as much, but they didn't drop their leaves, they didn't turn yellow. And one of the reasons why I like hackberry, it's a bottomland species, so it tolerates alternating water table. So it can tolerate wet soils and it can tolerate drought very well. It can tolerate some road salt, but really it doesn't like road salt very much. And it has the coolest bark. I love the bark on this plant. And the bark, and that's root flare. Isn't that a beautiful picture? Yeah, Mother Nature knows how to plant her trees. Anyways, there's a couple of cultivars, but the thing I like about the bark, if you can see it, it is raised bark, and it feels like a topographic map. If you ever felt one of those before. In grad school, because we were bored grad students, we used to play this game called Name Your Plant, and we would blindfold each other, and only one person at a time, okay? The other person would take this person up to a tree and say, identify it. And you could only use your sense of touch or smell. That's it. And I tell you, really hone in on your ID skills that way. And this was one that we used to like to take people to, and you could identify it. I know, we don't get out much, but it was a lot of fun. And a couple of cultivars that are common are Chicagoland, Windy City. I think there's another one, I can't think of it at the top of my head. Some of them don't get the leaf gall as bad as others, but you know, the leaf gall will not kill it, okay? Won't kill it, but really tough plant. And it is resistant to Dutch elm disease, so it's, I'm wondering why my picture's moving.
All right, just trying to get you in the film.
Okay. All right, Katsura tree. I love Katsura tree. It's one of my favorites. Does anybody ever smell the leaves as they're falling off and they turn brown? What do they smell like? Oh, come on. You've never sniffed leaves? Oh, you gotta do it this fall. Pardon? They smell like, some people say burnt sugar or cotton candy. It has a very strong smell, but you gotta wait till the leaves fall and turn brown. Take some into your hand, crunch them up and smell it. It's very strong, excuse me, strong scent. All right.
Male and female?
Yes, there's male and female trees, but the fruit is so small, it looks like teeny tiny bananas on the female, and they don't make a mess. So either male or female is fine, and both of them have great fall color.
And how tall does this
How tall?
one get?
Katsura tree, the biggest one I seen was about 50. So it's a medium tree. It's not little by any means. They can get quite large in diameter. Yeah, I saw those. I love the weepers.
Where's that native?
Speaking of weepers, this is pendula. This is a straight species. It's going to turn that same fall color, but it's native to Asia. Okay, and Katsura tree is one that is very sensitive to drought. I love this plant, and I saw one city use it as a street tree, and I'm just shaking my head going, oh no. No, it didn't survive. They got cankers and they died. This is a plant for the backyard. It's totally hardy for us here. That's not an issue. But during periods of drought, you need to water it. Absolutely. It is sensitive to drought and will wilt. Turkish filbert or Turkish hazelnut. This is not native, obviously, with the name Turkish. That's native to Europe. But hazelnut is a really nice plant. I like it because it has this nice formal pyramidal form and looks good in the landscape. This is also a drought-tolerant species. But anything in the birch family, like birch or this plant filbert or carpinus or hornbeam, they're not tolerant to road salt. And that's the only thing it's not tolerant to. Other than that, it can tolerate high pH, it can tolerate clay soils, urban conditions. It just doesn't like road salt. I wouldn't like it either.
Does it get nuts?
Yeah, speaking of which, wow, that picture came out funky. This should be brown.
Okay.
Anyways, but this is brown with these bracts that stick out, and if you crack this open, there's a seed on the inside, and you crack the seed open, and you can eat it. Or you don't even have to crack it open if it's soft enough. You can, once you get that seed out, it's quite flavorful. I'm sure some of you might have had this in coffee this morning. I know I love hazelnut coffee. That's great. Pardon?
My last dog was named Hazelnut.
Are
they messy like
No.
walnuts?
Yeah, usually the animals come from miles to get to this. They will get to the nuts before you do, before they fall. Squirrels, deer, raccoons, you name it, they love it. And it's wonderful. I'm guesstimating here. I would say 50. These are all larger trees. So. All right, one of my favorites. I love beech trees, both our native beech tree and the European beech tree. Unfortunately, our native beech tree is dying from beech bark disease. Anybody ever heard that? It's bad. I went on my favorite drive in Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula. It was near Petoskey. And there's this drive that goes from Petoskey up to Mackinac along the coast of Michigan. And it's called the Tunnel of Trees. And the Tunnel of Trees are all American beech trees. And every single one of them that I saw had beech bark disease. It's caused by a scale insect and a canker fungi. It's two things together. And it girdles and kills the trees. It's really sad. However, European beech, I've heard it can get it. I don't know the severity of it on that particular species, but I love beech trees, and especially the European beech because it has so many cultivars, including this one right here. This is Esplenifolia, and it has serrated leaves, almost looks like a fern frond, and it's really beautiful. This is Atroponciana. There's many other purple leaf cultivars of European beech, and it is actually almost black. It's so purple, so dark purple, and it's like that throughout the summer. Another one of my favorites is Rosio marginata. Oh, I love this. I got one in my garage right now. I can't find a place for it in my yard yet, but I'll find one. But the beeches, or this particular beech, dark purple in the center, pink margins, and there's one that's often mixed up with this called tricolor, and tricolor, you'll often have white margins along the edge. I personally, mine looks like this, and it's really beautiful. Now, European beech, you're zone 5 here, you don't have a problem growing it for hardiness. But beeches are very particular on their soils. They don't like heavy clay. They also don't do well in drought. They need some drought, some moisture. Yes?
How big are these trees? They look huge.
They are. Well, this is a talk about trees and shrubs. So, yeah, these are all big trees. And at the start of my talk, these are all the larger trees. I'll get to the smaller ones. Okay, so if they're larger, they're 50 feet and up for maximum height. Okay?
Oh, my favorite. They're your favorite.
You guys have space for some of these. I know you do. All right, ginkgo.
Yes.
Ginkgo biloba, our maidenhair tree. I love ginkgos, but they're also known as stinkos for a reason.
Why?
And that is the female. This plant has separate male and female flowers on 2 different plants. It's dioecious. And they don't start to produce their flowers until 20 years old. So if you just buy the straight species, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know if you're getting male or female. And there are a number of cultivars. And by the way, insects and diseases really don't affect this plant. It's very pest resistant. And I think they make excellent street trees. This happens to be autumn gold. Autumn gold ginkgo, that's a very common cultivar. There's Magyar is another one. There's Princeton Century. There's the President. There's a Presidential Gold. There's a whole bunch of them. And in fact, on the grounds here, there are a number of male ginkgos. These are all male that I just mentioned. And they make wonderful landscape plants. And who doesn't like the leaves? I mean, beautiful.
Seems variegated.
Yes, there are variegated ones out there. The variegated ones I've seen haven't been real stable, meaning they tend to revert to an all green leaf or only part of the leaf is variegated. They're coming out, you see new ones all the time on the market, and I'm hoping to get, better and better ones. I don't know if they're male or female. So I'd rather stick to known male cultivars myself. This is a dwarf one. This is called jade butterflies. I love this one. And jade butterflies, the leaves kind of cup up a little bit, so it almost looks like a butterfly wing. And this one, it's very slow growing. It's a dwarf plant. I think the biggest one I've seen is about 8 feet. It grows almost like a shrub in the landscape. And very beautiful fall color.
Light requirements?
Every full sun.
Full sun.
Yeah. I'll mention if it's a shade lover, but most trees aren't. We get to shrubs, you'll see some, or some smaller trees, you'll see some. All right, Kentucky coffee tree. This is a good alternative to honey locust. This is native to Wisconsin. It's a large tree. And it also produces those pods that some people, they kind of look like burnt tacos or dead mice. That's how my instructor described it when I was in school. Like, dead mice. Yeah, I can see that. I don't mind the fruit. It doesn't bother me any. But the native settlers, when they came to this country, used to take the seed and roast it first and grind it up and make a coffee substitute. That's where the plant got its name, coffee tree. If you don't like the fruit, you can plant male cultivars called espresso. There's cultivar J.C. McDaniel, trademark name Prairie Titan is another one. And then this one from Minnesota called Stately Manor. This was at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. And this one is hard to find, very difficult to find. Espresso is the most common one you will see. Now the trees look rather gaunt in wintertime. Have you ever seen one of these in winter, especially when they're young? They kind of look like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. There's not much to it. However, stick with it. Once it gets older, it develops more character, more branches, and the bark is, I love the bark on this. It's kind of like frosting on a cake or fish scales. Some people describe it that way, but it's got unique bark, and the fall color is really good, though I do not plant it near power lines. These are big trees, over 50.
Cheryl calls it spoon shaped. If you took a spoon and you grate clay on the bark.
Oh, on the bark. Oh, cool.
Spoon shaped.
Interesting. Now, larches, I'm only going to talk about this one in particular because of time. I don't want to spend all my time on trees. But this is the Japanese larch, and of all the larches, I really like this one. It is totally cold hardy for us. Everything I mention here today is all cold hardy. I wouldn't mention stuff that wasn't. And just like our native larch or the European larch, they all have that bright yellow fall color. Now this is later in the season. The bright yellow turned almost like a gold to, I don't know if you want to say burnt orange look to it, but they have beautiful fall color. They are deciduous gymnosperms, so they're supposed to lose their leaves every year. And the foliage on larches is so soft. I just love them. Its cousin, the golden larch. And the golden larch is one I particularly like. It's a zone 5 plant. It's not a true larch, so the cones do not stay on the plant all winter. Some people don't like that look on larches where the cones are there forever. The cones on golden larch actually shatter on the plant before they ever reach the ground. So you never have to rake up cones. The cone scales are small and they fall in little tiny pieces. But the fall color, and it's unfortunate the picture's so dark on the screen, the fall color is bright orange. It's very nice fall color. This is an acid lover, meaning it does need some acidic soil. And larches are not tolerant, both pseudo larch or golden larch and regular larch are not tolerant to drought. They are sensitive to it. One of my favorite deciduous gymnosperms is this one right here. I love this plant. This is on my top 10. Dawn redwood, Metasequoia glyptostroboides. We do have a few, pardon?
I just like saying the name.
I know that long word. Students see that and they're like, really? I didn't make these names up, but dawn redwood is related to our coastal redwood and giant sequoias are closely related, but this is from China. It's a zone 5 plant. We only have a couple in Madison because they just, if we ever have a severe winter like we did in 2012, sometimes the top dies out. But I've seen plenty of these in Milwaukee area doing fine. And we've got a nice one here at the gardens. I remember seeing him. And dawn redwood has those soft, feathery leaves. They are deciduous. They do turn kind of a, the picture's really dark. They turn kind of a darker orange color. Some people call it burnt orange for fall color, but look at that bark. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. And it is a very fast-growing tree. Maximum height on these in its native environment, folks, is 100 feet. It's not going to get that big here. Okay, I would say 60, 70 feet here. But they are fast-growing. Its cousin, the bald cypress. I am a big fan of this tree. And the reason why I like bald cypress so much is because it can tolerate, once established, it can tolerate drought, it can tolerate flooded soils, standing water. It is very heat and wind tolerant. It's got beautiful form, soft feathery foliage like a dawn redwood. Fall colors that same kind of burnt orange, and it also has beautiful fibrous shreddy bark. One of the newer ones, I have this in my yard. This is Shawnee Brave. That's the trademark name from Mickelson. This is one that's a little bit more narrow. It's not columnar, but it's not as wide as a straight species. So instead of being 30, 40 feet wide, it's about 25 feet wide. Okay? And this is at the Iowa, Botanical Garden in Ames. Yeah, Ryman Gardens, thank you. And again, beautiful. This day, it was almost 95. And a lot of the plants there look like they could use a drink, and this was like doing just fine. This is a native U.S. plant, and it grows all the way from Illinois down to Florida. It can tolerate heat just fine, but not until it's established. The city of Madison planted a bunch of these, and then they never watered them, and they died, and they says, well, you told us these would be great. Well, you gotta water them. And that's for the first couple years until they're established, and then they're pretty tough. This is the same plant, but at Chicago Botanic Garden. I love how they use this. This is a pleached LA. These are all bald cypress trees, and this is what it looks like in winter. You can see it's not topping, it's very specialized pruning done on the top and on the sides to create a hedge of bald cypress. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's very cool. That's right here, you know, just a couple hours south from here. All right, Nyssa sylvatica. This is another one of my top 10 favorites. You can't beat this plant for fall color. This is the best. Right up there, you know, sumac and Nyssa are right neck and neck for fall color. This is native to Wisconsin, but you didn't know that. It's only native in a very small portion of Racine County. Okay? However, I've been told that that native stand is no longer there, that they put up a strip mall. But for my part, I'm going to say this is native still, okay? Isn't that sad? Yeah. This is a tree I became very familiar with in the southern U.S. It's all over the south. And it has the same phenomenal fall color. Black gum, it's also known as sour gum. It's also known as Tupelo. You know the song by Van Morrison, She's as Sweet as Tupelo Honey? Special honey is made by bees that pollinate the flowers on Tupelo. Flowers are small and insignificant. The plant is dioecious, separate male and female plants. And the females produce a blue fruit. And when it's ripe, it's edible. You can eat it. It's not bad. It's a little tart, but it's not bad. And the branches are all at a 90-degree angle to the trunk. So you've got perfect branch structure. Very rarely needs pruning on these. Now, the conditions it likes moist, acidic, clay soils. Now, let me finish. It doesn't have to be pH of 5. I have one of these at home. Actually, I have the Weeper at home. There's a Weeper one out now. And I have it in pH of about 7.2, and it's just fine. Okay? It prefers acidic soil, but very high pHs, I would say anything above 7.5, you wouldn't want to use. It's just getting too high. It can tolerate heat very well. And I mention heat because we're seeing, obviously, climate change happening. I'm not going to get into the reasons, but climate change is real. It is happening. And we're seeing more and more plants being drought stressed, heat stressed, and so on. And they've actually have shown that a lot of our native plant populations are shifting farther and farther north as our climate gets warmer. This is a plant that can tolerate heat very, very well. Okay, I mean, if it grows in Georgia, it's got to be heat tolerant. Now, the hardiness issue is a thing I want to mention. It is zone 4B hardy or zone 6 hardy. Depends on the provenance. Depends on the seed source, where the seed was collected from the original plant. This is Carolyn. Carolyn is at the UW-Madison Arboretum. This was named after Ed Hasselkuss's granddaughter. And it's from seed that originated from New Hampshire, where it's native in New Hampshire. And it has withstood 40 below with absolutely zero winter damage. So there are selections that are more cold hardy. Unfortunately, this one, not yet, is in commercial production. I've given some budwood to a nursery out in Oregon, and I said, you need to be growing this one because every single one of your cultivars that you have is not hardy for us in Wisconsin, and this is a great plant. And they said, you think it would sell? I go, yeah, would it sell? With that fall color? Come on. And the fall color gets better and better as it progresses. It starts out kind of an orange-red, then turns flaming red, and then eventually turns burgundy to purple. And it lasts for several weeks. It's amazing. So if you are buying Nyssa sylvatica, there are nurseries. It's a little bit harder to find. There are nurseries around that do sell it. And make sure that it's from a northern seed source. If it's from seed collected in Tennessee and Georgia, it's not going to be hardy here. And you can't root these from cuttings with a darn. So it's either grafted or seed propagated. Okay. And that just shows, that's the fruit right here. Little blue, look like little blueberries. Black bears like them too. All right, Australia. This is our native American hop hornbeam. It's also known as ironwood. This is the one that produces fruit that looks like hops, but don't try to make beer out of this. It won't taste very good. This is a wonderful native plant. It is an understory / forest edge species. It tolerates partial shade, but not full shade. It does need some sun. It's not heat tolerant though, and I've seen some of these come down with canker if they were severely heat stressed, but it's a great plant. It's tough, and the bark I think is kind of cool. It comes off in these thin, narrow strips that go all the way down the stem. It is a medium-sized tree, by the way. It's about 45 feet tall for that one. All right, the next one is Philodendron amaranth. It used to be considered Philodendron lavellii. Now the botanists and taxonomists no longer recognize lavellii as a species, so now it's put in amaranth. And this is a cultivar longnecker, which originated from Longnecker Horticulture Gardens at the UW-Madison Arboretum. And the trademark name is Eyestopper, and there's a reason why it's called Eyestopper. The fall color is gorgeous, just gorgeous on this plant. And if it was a little bit lighter, some of you in the first row, you look at my screen, you can see the picture and how bright it is, the fall color. Really nice. This one has the best fall color of all the cork trees. This is also a male, so no fruit. You do not want to plant female cork trees. They are invasive. So you only want to plant males. And this one, look at that bark.
Oh.
That it's even more corky than the straight species. It's like ultra corky. And when you feel it, it feels just like cork. And the students love this plant when they get to it. Okay?
That's cool.
All right. Platanus exacerfolia, Morton circle. This is also called exclamation. And exclamation, London plane tree, and you know, I grew up with London plane trees, and they're always losing leaves, and they have a lot of problems, anthracnose. This is resistant to anthracnose. This also is very fast growing. It has a straight, tall terminal leader, and I don't know if you can see it, but the bark is beautiful. It's that cream to green, tan-colored, exfoliating bark, and it's really beautiful in wintertime, so it provides winter interest. Not much for fall color, but these trees are urban tolerant. They can tolerate urban conditions quite well. Now the oaks. I love oaks. I know oaks get oak wilt. So today I'm going to talk about the white oak group. They can get oak wilt, but if either proactively treating to prevent Dutch elm or to prevent oak wilt, or once the tree becomes affected with oak wilt, immediately treat it. I'm sure Brian Huddleston talked about oak wilt. Yeah. The red oak group is more susceptible, and with the red oak group, if they get oak wilt, there's not much you can do. They can die very quickly. However, I love oaks. I still grow them. And one of my favorites is white oak, our native white oak. You might think, well, this isn't new and different. No, but it's a great plant. Because look at that fall color. It's one of the best oaks for fall color. It's a beautiful burgundy fall color, and it's late in the season, so you don't see it start coloring up until late October, and it holds on to its leaves. So you've got that burgundy color for a while, and then eventually in late November they drop their leaves. It is in the white oak group. It does require slightly acidic soils. That's one thing about this oak. They will not tolerate high pH. It's a big tree, produces lots of acorns, but I like squirrels. For my dogs, they sit at the window and it's dog TV. They watch the squirrels. our native swamp white oak, another very nice oak. It's got that exfoliating bark on the branches. Wow, the picture was really dark. Sorry about that. Anyways, the foliage is not as deeply lobed as white oak. It's a very dark green and whitish underneath the leaf. And there's the acorn. But there are some new cultivars on the market of oaks. For the longest time, Sharon, we didn't have any cultivars of oaks. It was this, this, or this. You know, take your pick. Well, now Schmidt's Nursery out in the state of Oregon has introduced some new cultivars. This one, JFS, stands for J. Frank Schmidt Nursery. KW was Keith Warren. And the number 12. That doesn't mean anything. They're forcing you to use the trademark name, which is American Dream. And American Dream Swamp White Oak has, according to Schmidt's, I've never seen a big one of these because it's so new, they're supposed to have better form and better branch. There's also hybrids oaks. And this is a hybrid oak of white oak and columnar English oak. This is Quercus bimundorum crimschmidt, or crimson spire oak. And that is as wide as it gets. Okay? This is a I took this one at Schmidt's Nursery. This is the mother plant, literally the mother plant. And that's only about 12 feet, maybe 15 feet wide. These are young ones. But if you're looking for a narrow tree that's not going to get real wide, but will get tall, this is a good one. And the nice thing about this one is it has red fall color. Okay, it has burgundy fall color. There's another one, I love the name of this one. This is a chick magnet. Skinny jeans, who wouldn't want a skinny jeans in their yard? Come on. And it is even skinnier than the Crimson Spire. Look at that. All right, nice leaves. Again, it's a hybrid between white oak and columnar English oak. And it has not as good a fall color as Crimson Spire, but it's a nice narrow tree. Only gets about 12 feet wide. That's it. Some other hybrid oaks that are out there that are readily available. This one is Heritage, and it's a hybrid between English oak and bur oak. Our native bur oak and English oak. And this one, a lot of growers like this one because it grows fast, which most oaks don't grow fast. And a lot of these hybrids have hybrid vigor and they grow faster than either species alone. Not much for fall color on this one, but really tough plant. And of course we have our majestic bur oak. I love it. Yep.
Can I ask about the English oak? Does it get powdery mildew? Like
the straight species English oak, especially the columnar one, is prone to powdery mildew, but some of these hybrids, they've not seen it. That's not to say it won't happen, but they're not seeing it. Okay? And I've seen some around. I've asked growers, and they're saying they're pretty clean. All right, bur oak. Our native bur oak, prairie oak. And there's actually a cultivar now of this plant. I know, believe it or not. This one is, again, from J. Frank Schmidt Nursery. And again, I do not own stock in this company. I'm not trying to promote their stuff. But when they have good stuff, I do talk about it. This is cobblestone. And I don't have a picture of a big one because this is brand new. And cobblestone bur oak is supposed to have slightly faster growth rate, if you can believe that, on a bur oak, because bur oaks are usually very slow. It also has real dark green, glossy leaves. It's a nice plant. And another cultivar of bur oak, this one is called Urban Pinnacle. This is also from J. Frank Schmidt Nursery. And this one is supposed to have a little bit faster growth rate. Again, what is fast for a bur oak? More than 6 inches. All right, chinkapin oak. This is my personal favorite next to white oak. Chinkapin oak, I have one of these in my yard. And there's also one as you pull into the gardens here on the back entrance by the, I don't know what house that is, the shop or the garage.
off of the 92nd
The
Street.
service
Yes.
center. That's
Yeah.
a service center.
the service building.
Yeah.
There's one there. And I saw party mildew on it one year. Last year it didn't have any. I have never had mildew on mine. But this is our native oak. Guess what? It likes high pH soil. It likes high pH. It's naturally found on limestone outcrops, so it can tolerate some of our soils around here much better than, say, pin oak that everybody plants and that then gets chlorosis. This one won't. It has dark green leaves, and the leaves, I love the leaves on this. They're kind of serrated or jagged. Fall color, it's okay. It's kind of a yellow-brown fall color, but a very clean-looking plant. And the bark, just like swamp white oak, as it gets older, it becomes exfoliating, or at least kind of shreddy looking.
And is the older plant often rounded?
Yeah, with chinkapin oak, oops. When they're young, they tend to be tall, and mine at home is like this. It's tall and skinny, but over time it does get wide. Definitely. It's not a little tree. It'll get 60 feet or more in height. All right, moving along. Swamp bur oak. This is a hybrid between our native swamp white oak and our native bur oak. This does occur naturally in the wild, the two hybridize. This one was heavily promoted by Johnson's Nursery here just north of Milwaukee. And I've seen it. It has hybrid vigor. So it has the high pH tolerance of a bur oak, but faster growth rate of a swamp white oak. And the leaf looks, it's, you know, show one of my students this, and they're like, you know, what is it? And they're like, I don't know. It has both characteristics of a swamp white oak leaf. It's white underneath, but it's deeper lobes like a bur oak leaf. And this is one I'm a big fan of. Really like this one.
Are you being used as street trees?
Yes, I recommend, you know, all right. A lot of people don't like oaks because they have acorns. So what? Okay, there are a lot of animals out there that need to be fed and birds that use nuts, okay? If you have, I wouldn't put it, say, in a parking lot, because all the nuts falling on the car alarms would all go off. But I know a lot of arborists in this area are really starting to use more oaks because they, yes, they can get oak wilt, but all of these that I mentioned are in the white oak group. And they don't plant street after street after street with oaks, because you're just asking for a problem, because oak wilt is also transferred via root grafts. But for a park-like setting or a street where, you know, there's not a lot of cars parking right underneath it, I think oaks do very well. They're tough trees. Yes?
How about taproot? That's what everybody always says. Oh, they're hard to transplant.
No.
No.
Everybody thinks that the taproot goes to China. It doesn't. Oaks have a taproot when they germinate. And a good nursery practice will grow them in pots when they're little that air pruning. And that taproot then branches. It's not this single, everybody thinks it's the single root that goes in the ground like a carrot. It doesn't. If you look at the root system of a tree that's produced baldwin burlap, because oaks generally don't do very well planted bare root. There are a couple exceptions. One is swamp white oak. But generally, they tend to have a very fibrous root system. They have that taproot when they're young, and it branches out. Now, in the native situation, they probably have a taproot that's longer because it hasn't been dug up or root pruned.
Do they require a lot of water?
Not these. It's bur oak. Very drought tolerant. One of the most drought tolerant plants out there. Swamp white oak can tolerate wet soils, but they can also tolerate dry. Yeah. All right, that's just another picture of swamp bur oak hybrid. And these are readily available. All right, the last oak species I'm going to talk about is Quercus ex wariana. And this is the Regal Prince. And Regal Prince is a hybrid between English, columnar English oak, and our native swamp white oak. So this has been very popular in the nursery industry. It's got a nice narrow form. It does get taller, can get up to 40 feet or so. and it has wider leaves than the English oak, and it tolerates urban conditions better, and it's more cold hardy than English oak. And it's kind of bright, but you can see the form of the tree, narrow. Now, what is wrong with this picture?
No.
We never see that, right? How wide is that terrace? It's like about 18 inches. No, we shouldn't be planting them there. We should be planting them over here where there's space. I realize it has to do with the easement, but if your boulevard isn't at least, depending on the tree species, for large trees, they're recommending 6 to 8 foot wide terraces for large trees because of the root plate. You know, the roots are going to grow. And then they plant them in these skinny terraces, and then the tree roots start upheaving the sidewalk, and then they come through with chainsaw, and they cut all the roots on one side of the tree. Oh, but it's at an intersection, we got to cut the roots on this side too. And what's holding that tree up? You know, trees fall down and go boom. Yeah, not good. Sometimes I say one of the best things you can do in those skinny terraces is plant flowers, perennials, something that's going to live. All right, this is the last one. This is Kindred Spirit. This is another one from the columnar English and the Burrow hybrid. I don't have a picture of a big one because this just came out too. All right, lindens. I love lindens when they flower. They smell incredible. And bees flock to them for miles. So when lindens are in flower, please don't use any insecticides. Because there was someone told me about this. People were complaining about the bees, and some Yahoo company came through, sprayed the lindens, and the next day all the bees were dead. Now folks, bees are in serious doo-doo. They're in serious trouble in this throughout the world. And anything that where we can encourage bees, because I tell you, if you've ever gone up to a bee that's feeding on the nectar of flowers or trees, they're not going to mess with you. They're more interested in that nectar. Okay. American linden, this particular species, has a lot of problems with suckering from the base of the tree. And a lot of that has to do with how deep we plant it. I could do a whole nother talk about planting. Too many trees, are root flare is buried. Now, this is McKay Century. This one, I know it's dark on this slide. But American Century is from McKay Nursery, right here in Wisconsin. I've seen this tree. We have one at the Arboretum. It grows faster than the species, and it has a very tall, straight central leader and better branch angles. So many of the lindens, especially little leaf linden, have those little tiny narrow crotches that lead to included bark formation. They split apart as they get older. This one, this particular cultivar does not. And it's one that I like. Some people said it's less susceptible to Japanese beetle. Well, somebody forgot to tell the Japanese beetle. You know, any one of the lindens is very susceptible to Japanese beetle. Here are the flowers, incredibly fragrant, followed by the little tiny nutlets. Redmond linden is another linden I like. This one is fast growing, has a nice tall straight terminal leader. It is not a cultivar of American. Everybody thinks it is. It's not. American linden is one of the parents. The other parent is Crimean linden, which grows in Europe. It's just a picture of the Redmond linden. The twigs are red, the buds are red. And then American elms. American elms, there's been so much research done on American elms to come up with Dutch elm, or DED, Dutch elm disease resistant cultivars. And I list some here. There's American Liberty, New Harmony, Princeton, Valley Forge. There are others on the market as well. I just caution landscape architects, don't plant a whole street of them. Because if they get, they're Dutch elm disease resistant, resistant does not mean immune. So if they do get it, and it's planted in a straight row, it's just going to go through the root grafts all the way down the street. So one here and there would do well. lace bark elm. This is not the same as Siberian elm. Siberian elm is invasive and a horrible plant. It's also called Chinese elm, but I tend to use the word lace bark elm because look at that bark. Isn't that beautiful? Looks like a jigsaw puzzle. It's orange and tan and olive, and it's several different colors. It's really a beautiful tree. It's a medium-sized elm. It's less susceptible to some of the leaf. Everything eats elm leaves, it seems like. They can get some feeding, but not as much as like an American elm. And then these hybrids. I love these hybrids. Hybrids such as Accolade or Triumph. Both of these are from Morton Arboretum. The Morton cultivar, trademark name Accolade. Morton Glossy, trademark name Triumph. Of all the ones, I like this one the best, the Triumph. And why I like it is good form, incredibly drought tolerant. This is actually a research study in Minnesota that Dr. Gary Johnson set up, and they planted these in brownfield sites where it's the worst soil, they're not taken care of, they're watered a couple times until they're established, and then that's it. Every single one of these Triumph elms survived, and the leaves are really dark green, thick and glossy. You had minimal, really for an elm, that's minimal leaf feeding insects on it. Not much for fall color, but totally hardy for us and a very nice urban tolerant tree. Now Accolade, Triumph, and the next one, Frontier, do not have any American elm in them. These are hybrids. They are complex hybrids of several Asian elms, as well as European elms. This one, Frontier, I like. It's a Zone 5 plant, and unfortunately you can't see the true fall color, but the fall color is a beautiful burgundy fall color. And for an elm to have good fall color, that's pretty rare. It also has, one of the parents is lacebark elm, so the bark, it's not as lacy as it is in lacebark, but it's not bad as it gets older. Very clean leaves too. All right, ready to look at some smaller ornamental trees? All right, let's get through these and then we'll take a break. Is that okay? All right, paper bark maple, love it. In Madison, this is kind of like an iffy plant. Even at the Arboretum, we've had dieback on ours at the Arboretum. In people's backyards where there's microclimates, it would do. It would probably do. I'm a little hesitant to spend $300 on one of these trees and have it die on me. But paper bark maple, I fell in love with this tree when I was at Michigan State University. We had a big one on campus, and it was very, very beautiful. These are all smaller trees, so all these trees that I mentioned at this point are below 30 feet tall. So they're below 30 feet tall, and this one has that beautiful exfoliating bark that is just, it's unfortunate that you can't see the color, but it's a very dark cinnamon brown, and it's beautiful, exfoliating. Another smaller maple, this one's only about 15 feet tall. This is Korean maple, or Acer pseudosibyllianum, and it's also known as the purple bloom maple. I just call it Korean maple. It's a little bit easier. And there are hybrids out now of this plant and Japanese maple, Acer palmatum, and they've hybridized the two, and they've gotten maples now that have the leaf almost like a Japanese maple. It's deeply divided, or dissected, I should say. Not as dissected as some of the cultivars, but it's a deeper lobe leaf with orange new growth for about 2 months in the spring, and totally hardy. As Japanese maple for us in Madison, not too hardy. We've lost a lot of them. This one is totally hardy, the Korean maple, but when you combine the two, you get the hardiness and the beautiful fall color of this plant combined with the finer texture and orange leaves of some cultivars of Japanese maple. And that particular cultivar that I highly recommend is called North Wind. North Wind. And North Wind is from Isley's Nursery. When I saw this plant in the nursery, I was like, stop the truck. I had to get out, even with the sprinklers on, I had to get out and get pictures of it, because all the new leaves were orange, bright orange. Now it does fade to green in the summer, but that's just another benefit of this plant, is you got those orange new leaves. Just gorgeous, great fall color, like the Korean maple. There's one that Ed Hasselkiss introduced called Northern Glow. To be honest, I like North Wind better. I think it has better form, but to each his own. These are great plants.
Question, it was Korean and which?
Japanese.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a hybrid. There's several of them just coming on the market. One's called Arctic Jade. I think one of the better ones is North Wind. And I've seen all of them. I just think the form is better and the new leaves are orange on that one. It's very, very nice. Anybody ever tried them? A couple people? Which one?
Just the straight Korean maple?
Oh, just the cream, but I mean the hybrid.
No.
No. You'll see them at the garden centers. They're starting to come slowly but surely. All right, and that's just the fall color of Korean. Very, very nice.
Beautiful.
The three-flowered maple, this is Acer triflorum. And Acer triflorum gets its name because there's 1, 2, 3 flowers. They're not particularly showy, but that's where it gets its name. This is another small maple. Beautiful orange to gold fall color and exfoliating bark. So this is kind of like paper bark maple, but this one's hardy to zone 4. Whereas paper bark maple is only hardy to zone 5. So I have one of these in my yard, and it's a really nice plant. You're going to hear me say that a lot today. I have one of these in my yard. The hodgepodge.
Yeah, how big is your yard?
Not real big. I mean, it's about 1/3 of an acre. And then 1/3 of the acre, and then I have 40 feet of green space, which is grass. I have to maintain it as grass. And then just past that, I have a 120-foot long, 40-foot wide berm of the darkest, blackest prairie soil I've ever seen, with a pH of 6.5 and organic matter at 6%. It is the holy grail of soil. I had to buy this house. And I filled it with all different types of conifers. So, anyways, I digress. This is Shantung maple, Acer truncatum, another small maple. This is one of the parents of the Norwegian sunset and Pacific sunset maples that hybridized with Norway. I love the leaf on this. It's shiny and it looks like, anybody familiar with sweet gum?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like a sweet gum leaf without the gumballs.
Yeah.
All right. And fall color can be variable. I've seen some that didn't have any fall color and some that had orange to purple fall color. So it is quite variable. One of my favorites. Serviceberry. Serviceberry, this is the apple serviceberry. It's a hybrid between our two native serviceberries. And it grows faster and it has less disease problems than one of its parents. And the flowers, when this is in flower, you know it's spring, because the daffodils are often flowering at the same time. It's beautiful. White flowers, followed by yum yum fruit. Anybody ever had the fruit of serviceberries? Oh, yeah, I've got this robin. I've got this robin that sits up in my ash tree, and it's next to the serviceberry, and he's watching me, and he like dive bombs me. So I made a visual agreement with him that says, okay, I'll leave some for you, but I'm going to take some too. And I've made serviceberry coffee cake, muffins, pancakes, you name it, and it is delicious. It tastes like blueberries, but you gotta wait till they're ripe, when they turn purple. If you pick them when they're red, they're not juicy and not very sweet. But when they turn purple, they're very good.
How tall?
All of these are small trees, so serviceberry 20 feet. Yeah, it's not a little tiny plant, but they're not fast growing, so they're not going to get big very fast. And there's so many different cultivars. There's Robin Hill, there's Princess Diana, Cold Select, Autumn Brilliance, Ballerina, Forest Prince. There's also other species of serviceberry, like Amelanker laevis. There's a whole bunch of them. What I'm saying, folks, is you can't go wrong with serviceberry. They're all good.
Still full sun?
I actually had mine in partial shade. Full sun to partial shade. They like afternoon shade, is what they like. They like morning sun, so you get enough flowers and fruit set, but afternoon shade. They don't like to be in hot baking sun all day. Very nice plant though. Fall color is phenomenal. Anywhere from orange to red. Really nice. Yes.
And you said that was a cross between our two native?
Yes, Amelanker laevis, which is the Allegheny serviceberry, and Amelanker arborea, which is the downy serviceberry. Okay? So I consider this here. All right, birch. If you're looking for a little birch, I really like this little guy. He's so cute. He looks like a little mushroom. This is Little King or Fox Valley River birch, and they only get about 20 feet, if that, and that's 15 to 20 feet for a river birch is pretty small. It's a genetic dwarf, so it does not flower or fruit, but it has the same beautiful exfoliating bark that looks really nice in winter. However, river birch, what do river birch require? Water. They don't have to be planted in water. Acid soils. River birch are really intolerant to pHs above 7.2, 7.3. And I see a lot of river birches planted, and I see a lot of chlorotic river birches. So they do need that acid soil. Now, river birch don't have to be planted in water or near water. Just in a drought situation, you do want to water it. And here's another one of river birch. This is Studentic, and it's called Tecumseh Compact. And this one is a different form than the one we just saw. And it's more of kind of like a semi-weeping form, and it's a smaller tree. I've not seen big ones of these, but they say it's only about 15 feet. So, musclewood. Love our native musclewood. Carpinus caroliniana. It's also known as American hornbeam. It's also known as blue beech, even though it's not a beech. It's also known as ironwood, but so is Australia, called ironwood. I like to use the word musclewood because, and by the way, this is at Dumbarton Oaks in Washington, D.C. They planted a bunch of our native hornbeams, and they created a bleached hedge out of them. Another cool use for that plant. Look at that. Yeah, that's awesome. This tree flexes its muscles. It's called musclewood for a reason, because if you feel the bark, it feels like muscles in your arm. It's very cool. This is a native tree, only about 25, 30 feet in height. And fall color is quite variable on this plant. However, this is one that was introduced by Johnson's Nursery right here in this area. It's called J.N. Upright, Johnson's Nursery Upright, or trademark name Fire Spire. And I have seen this plant in a number of locations, and it is this fall color. Best fall color I've seen on one of these plants. It also has columnar form, so it's not going to get as wide as the species. Now, I personally have in my yard, I don't have Fire Spire, but I have a selection from Johnson's Nursery that has most incredible fall color. It is the JN strain, or Johnson's Nursery strain, and it's a wider one with low branches, but the fall color starts out orange, and then it turns red, and then it turns flaming red, and then it goes to like almost a burgundy. Really beautiful fall color. And so when people say, well, I want one that has good fall color, you got to get a name selection, because if you just plant the species, fall color can be nothing, too bright red.
Is this tolerant of alkaline soils?
I have mine in alkaline soil and it's doing fine. It doesn't require acidic, but what it requires is good soil. They are intolerant to heavy clay or compaction. They also don't like road salt. But I have one in my backyard, and I mean, friends come out and are just amazed during the fall color season. It's beautiful. And I don't do a doggone thing to it, so. Except for, all right, red bud. Yes?
What was the one that you liked? Just
JN strain. JN, Johnson's Nursery, strain. That's how they label it. It's not a particular trademark or fancy name. It's just called JN strain. Anyways, red bud. How many of you have eaten the flowers?
Oh,
No one?
oh,
They're delicious.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I love the flowers on the plant, so I don't take them all off. I just take a couple, sprinkle it on a salad. It's beautiful. And they're sweet. They really are. Mike Annie always talks about, he's got a picture of himself like a corn cob, but it's service berry, and he's like, no. He's funny. Anyways, red bud, the hardiness issue. You have to get a northern strain, northern provenance. And the northern provenance that quality growers around here are growing is the Columbus strain. And it was named because it was growing in Columbus, Wisconsin. It is not native to Wisconsin. It's native to Illinois, it's native to Michigan, but it's not native here, but who cares? It's a great plant. If you get a northern seed source. There are a lot of cultivars. There's some burgundy ones on the market, there's some variegated ones, there's one called Rising Sun with beautiful yellow new leaves. None of them are hardy here. This one is. So it has to be the Columbus strain, or there's another strain called the Minnesota strain. And the Minnesota strain, again, it's not native there. It was just selected from somewhere, a northern seed source, and they have withstood 40 below without any winter kill. Or 30 below, excuse me, 30 below without any winter kill. And because of that, we can grow them here. I hear people say, oh, they're not hardy. It depends on the provenance. Beautiful, those purple, pinkish flowers that are long lasting. It's in bloom for weeks. Because it blooms so early, it's not hot yet, so they last a long time. And then if you like white, there's a white cultivar called Alba. It's just as pretty. It really is pretty. How long does it take red buds to bloom? Not real long. My neighbor planted one. First couple years it didn't flower. Then it flowered. So I would say 10 years, maybe. Which isn't, no, I'm talking from seed to flowering. Sorry about that. No, when you buy them in a nursery, they're already 7 years old, okay? No, that would be long. Now, fringe tree. Is it a shrub? Is it a tree? Fringe tree, I'm a huge fan of. This plant is one that I became very familiar with in the southern U.S. It's native to the southern U.S., but it is cold hardy for us, zone 4. And look at those flowers. They're gorgeous. The flowers are fringed, and they look like somebody cut them with the scissors. They're fragrant. They're pure white, and they flower right around near my birthday, the very end of May. And it's so nice to see something in flower then, because a lot of stuff flowers early and then in June. But this is a late May flower. A lot of people think it looks dead because it hasn't leafed out yet, but boom, it leaves out. And it flowers at the same time, but you can see the flowers. It's gorgeous. The fruit is a dioecious plant, separate male and female flowers. The females produce blue fruit that hangs down, it looks like grapes or olives. I have tried these. They're not good. I leave them for the birds. It has a pit on the inside and they're very sour, not very good. However, their fruit is beautiful. And even if you get a male, you've got great fall color. You have this bright yellow fall color. I know it looks dark in this picture, but it's bright yellow. And the plant is urban tolerant. Once established, it's drought tolerant, high pH tolerant. It gets about 20-25 feet in its native habitat. here, I'd say about 15 feet tall. It's a large shrub / small tree. And unfortunately, and I say this and it saddens my heart, because I got 2 of these in my yard, that emerald ash borer has been found on French Street. Now, hold on. It's not their preferred host, okay? They want to go to ash. And this was one case that I heard of, okay? I'm not going to throw out this plant because of that, and I haven't treated it or anything. I just love this plant. I think it's really beautiful.
They have 2 of those at the Linden Sculpture Garden, just as you go over the bridge, over the pond. So check them out, and they,
Ooh, nice.
they're really big.
Golden Glory, Cornelian Cherry Dogwood. Of all the Cornus moss has yellow flowers, okay? That should be bright yellow. But the flower, Golden Glory is more columnar in habit, and it produces big yummy fruit. Now, when the fruit is red, let me tell you, anybody ever tried the fruit? When it's red, it's very astringent. It pulls all the moisture out of your mouth, okay? Wait till it turns purple and you can get it before the birds get it. And a good friend of mine, Mike Wendt, he makes Cornus moss, Cornelian cherry wine. It's really good and very beautiful. It's that bright red color.
I think it's a really dry wine.
No, it's sweet. It's sweet. Falk, you know, you've had it?
He's a winemaker.
We're good friends.
Oh, okay. Well, tell him I like it. He makes wine out of every fruit you can think of. And the bark is exfoliating. Fall color, usually not much, but sometimes you'll see a little bit of hints of purple in it. Cornus moss is sensitive to drought, very sensitive. This is not a plant for a location where you plant it and don't ever water it. However, Golden Glory has a thicker leaf than the straight species, so it tolerates a little bit drier conditions, not drought, than the straight species. All right, I do like this plant. I've seen it used quite effectively as a replacement for tall hedge buckthorn. And if I go back a picture, you can see this is at Old Brick Gardens in Madison. See that? All planted in a row. Kind of looks like tall hedge buckthorn without the invasiveness. All right, Washington hawthorn. There's a lot of hawthorns out there. I really like Washington hawthorn. And the reason why, it has the most persistent fruit. It's more persistent and more colorful than crab apples. I have seen these in February, still looking good, full of fruit. The birds eventually get to them later in winter, but you've got this beautiful red fall color, fruit that are in clusters, that are shiny. They start out orange-red, and by late winter, they turn very dark red to burgundy. Yes?
Do the thornless also have those traits?
There is not a true thornless one of these. You're thinking of cockspur hawthorn. And cockspur hawthorn I don't mention here only because the fruit is not persistent. It drops all its fruit around Halloween.
And what would its name be?
Crataegus criscali. Yeah, intermiss is the thornless one. There are a couple cultivars I mention here, or actually one in particular called Washington Luster. I've yet to see a nursery sell it. It's supposed to be not thornless, but less thorns. So, but I've never seen a nursery selling this around here. Maybe in the south, but not here. Flowers are white in June, and great fall color, and wonderful fruit display.
Does it get rust?
Yeah, it can get rust, but I think I've seen a lot of them on campus, and we have tons of crab apples on campus. We also have cedar, so there's plenty of junipers around, our native junipers around. And I've seen it some on the fruit, some on the leaves, but not as bad as Crataegus mollis, which is the downy hawthorn, which is really susceptible to
But
that.
it's orange in summer.
Yeah, no, it's much better. And the other one I like is Winter King. This is Winter King hawthorn. Very nice tree. Look at that fruit.
Oh,
It's beautiful. Now, it's called Winter King, but let me tell you, by beginning of January, that fruit is gone. The bird will get them. Okay? Some last longer. I'm not saying they don't. But they're particularly showy because the stems are light gray color. Fruit is a scarlet red. And the bark is this beautiful orange. And I really am a good photographer, so don't think that I'm a bad photographer. These slides are brighter on my screen. All right, I think we should take a break. It's 10 after 7.
sun, they finally hit something.
How long of a break do you want? About 15 minutes.